that something you talked about as a possibility coming to the Magic where your dad played?
It was super special. I've never seen my dad get emotional like that, so it was kind of awkward for me at first. But just having that moment with him and joining the NBA brotherhood that he was once a part of, it was so special.
What was the pre-draft process like for you, and did you have an idea that Orlando was interested in you?
I think pre-draft process went really well for us. I was with CAA and we had a really great group of guys and we pushed each other every single day. So just working on, strength, weaknesses, and just getting overall better. I think that was really like one of the biggest things that we really focused on. And just the possibility of Orlando. I mean, when I got there for my workout, I kind of felt like it was a really good spot for me. I really enjoyed.
Jace Richardson speaking there after being drafted last night by the Orlando Magic. We appreciate you joining us for Florida Live this afternoon. We're here weekdays at 2 o'clock on Fox Local and on YouTube. Hope you make plans to join us tomorrow as well. As we wrap up, going to leave you with this view of Camping World Stadium as that game gets ready to begin, 3 o'clock.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Well, good afternoon to you. Welcome into Fox 35 News Plus. Give you a live look from our iDrive camera right now in Orange County. You can see some rain off in the distance there. We are also seeing some showers in the downtown area. You see fans still in the stands of the FIFA Club World Cup game between Juventus and Man City going on right now. We got the Thunder truck out and about as well on this Fox 35 Weather Impact Day. We'll check in with Storm Team meteorologist Laurel Blanchard in just a little bit. But it is 4 o'clock right now. That means it's time for today's Top 4 at 4, where we break down 4 of the big stories that we're tracking in the Fox 35 newsroom today. And joining me for today's Top 4 at 4 is Fox 35 News anchor LuAnne Sorrell. LuAnne, good to see you.
Good to be here.
So let's start with a story out of Ocala, where a youth baseball coach has been arrested and is now facing charges.
Yes, very serious and disturbing allegations here. This happened in Ocala, and detectives say that this man, 29-year-old John Sales, was a baseball coach and a youth church volunteer. They say he had inappropriate relationships with several minors in the Ocala area. They found out about what was going on from a mother of one of the alleged victims. She called deputies. They started investigating. And they say so far they have found several minors who say they had inappropriate relationships with this man. Now, investigators say those relationships spanned several years, and they say there could be more victims out there as well. So they're asking anyone who had contact with this man to come forward if they are a victim of him as well.
The reason we believe that is because this story goes back almost 10 years to what we pieced together to be the beginning. You know, some things were weird but relatively innocent, so to speak, just odd comments and all. And it was getting to those victims that actually had something happen to them and finding them. Our concern is that we may not have found them all.
It's this was a lengthy investigation. They said they really turned over a lot of stones to kind of get to this point. And the details are always disturbing in cases like this, and it makes it even worse when they say they think that there could be more victims out there.
Yeah, and it seems like these alleged predators always put themselves in situations where they're around kids, without their parents possibly being around. Baseball coach, church volunteer, and then once again we hear of a story like this. It just, as a parent, makes you not want to trust anyone, not leave your kid with anyone at this point.
I mean, it does make it hard, I'm sure, because you do hear about this more and more often, and you really do just have to be so careful.
Absolutely.
Because you do hear about it.
Yeah, you just never know.
You never know. Fox 35's Marie Ettinger following up on this story. We'll check in with her in a little bit about this as well. Story number 2 today, and this is one out of Polk County where a deputy resigning after being accused of stealing some money during a traffic stop.
Yeah, I don't hear this every day, and Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd is not happy about it one bit either. Here's the deputy we're talking about. He's 28-year-old Justin Register. This happened a little bit ago. He resigned from the department yesterday. He allegedly pulled over a man in Fort Meade, and that man did not have a valid driver's license, so he arrested that man, put him in the back of his squad car. 2 other deputies arrived at the scene and saw this deputy here put that man's cell phone and wallet in his trunk. Well, the man's daughter shows up. She asked for her dad's belongings. The deputy gave it to her, and the man in the back of the squad car said, "Hey, I had $300 more in my wallet. Where's my $300?" Well, that's when the 2 backup deputies say this deputy Register went into his rifle bag in the trunk and said, "Oh, here it is." Like he just mistakenly placed it in his rifle bag. So yeah, he has since resigned from his position with the Polk County Sheriff's Office.
Also interesting because I believe they had the check stub because they had just cashed a roughly $400 check. So you kind of wonder too, without that proof, would this have been discovered?
Right. But yeah, you never know. He's like, "Here's my check stub. I just cashed my check." And so what was he going to say? If they looked through his stuff, they were going to find it. So he kind of got caught red-handed. Yeah,
you're right about that. Not a great situation
there.
Story number 3, Governor Ron DeSantis today announcing a new consortium for a new higher education accreditor in the state of Florida.
Yeah, he announced the Commission for Public Higher Education will be the new education accreditor in the state. He apparently had some issues with the previous one. We've kind of been changing what's expected from our colleges and universities here in the state for a while, but the governor said that this new accreditor will ensure that colleges and universities meet and maintain academic quality and operational excellence on behalf of their students. He went on to say that the commission will include 6 public university systems that will focus on academic excellence, student outcomes, process efficiency, and the pursuit of quality assurance for public post-secondary education, so the public institutions here in our state. But some say that this is just another attack on the woke agenda that the governor has been after. You may remember that Florida passed a law back in 2023 that banned state funding for DEI programs at public colleges and universities here in the state. And some people say this is just an extension of that.
And that was one of the points he made earlier today, because he was saying, there was that state law that was passed, but he said these accreditation kind of agencies would come in and still expect to see some of those things. And so he was talking about what he believed to be kind of a tension between state law and what these accreditors, kind of wanted to see. So like you said, he said they want to, with this move, kind of end, quote, woke accreditation cartels. Here's what he said about that.
Institutions really became corrupted by ideology, and they were putting ideology ahead of the pursuit of truth. During COVID, so many of these medical associations put ideology over evidence-based medicine. Even today, you have people like the American Society of Pediatrics opposing the Supreme Court's ruling that said states can say you can't perform sex changes on 13-year-old kids. Like, no, we're not going to do that. And they're saying they don't have evidence that this is good, but it's part of their ideological posture. It's part of their belief system. So they're doing. So you've seen that in medical. You've seen that in law with the American Bar Association. The American Bar Association has now become a far-left activist group. And you know what? You have every right to be a far-left activist group, but our law schools should not be captive to having to bend the knee to get accreditation from you. That should not be the way it works.
So several other states kind of signing on to this effort, and the governor said today he believes that we will see more states join that eventually as well.
Yeah, they kind of followed on with the banning public educations from doing the DEI. So Florida's leading the way when it comes to this. So it'll be interesting to see what other states follow suit.
Finally, let's wrap up our top 4 at 4 with some wild video out of Pinellas County.
You're not going to believe your eyes when you see this. I've never seen anything like it. Take a look. A possible tornado touching down yesterday in Largo. It lifts up this mobile home.
Completely. Look, it's on.
Yes.
It's like on the edge there.
It's still up, and it eventually slams back down here in a couple seconds. It's hard to believe that a 76-year-old woman was inside with her cat. That woman survived, but the cat is still missing. But yeah, before even the house goes up, you see all the debris, the roofs coming off of the other homes. It's some pretty shocking video, and the National Weather Service is out there today trying to confirm if this was in fact a tornado. It's going to be hard to believe that it's not, because you see the twisting in the video and the debris going up. But I think they'll determine if it was, you know, F1, F2. But yeah, they're still out there today. You see the damage left behind in this mobile home park there in Largo, just devastating that area.
We also heard from, I know Fox 13 in Tampa talked to a neighbor who rushed to help their neighbor who they saw inside that home lifted up. Here's what they said.
Anything about what it was like to be inside her home when it was picked up?
She did. She was tumbling over and over, and she was trying to get her cat, and she couldn't, and she was in complete shock. She had no idea, I don't think, the damage and what all she had really just been through. So we had to convince her to come out of her house because she was waiting to find her cat, and it was just not safe for her to be in there anymore. It was half gone.
And how long did she stay with you afterward?
She was at my house for about an hour and a half. We finally got a hold of her daughter, and then I took her over there to her house.
Would you call it a miracle that she escaped alive?
Absolutely. I told her over and over again. I said, the Lord spared you. Look at your house, and all you came away with was a few scratches. So actually, the Lord really took care of this woman and spared her, considering what you can see now, what's left.
I would say if you didn't think it was a miracle, after you watch that video and see it completely lifted up,
Yes.
then you probably believe it was a miracle.
And she was tumbling down inside. Just a few scratches. Just amazing that, yeah, she wasn't hurt.
Could have been really, really bad there.
Right.
Well, that is today's Top 4 at 4. LuAnne, we appreciate
Sure,
you joining
my
us.
pleasure.
We're going to take a quick break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back after this.
watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Laurel Blanchard joins me now. And Laurel, we were just watching that video from Largo showing that mobile home completely lifted up in the air and then just slammed back down. Absolutely unreal video from those storms, that possible tornado there in Pinellas County.
Yeah, these storms really hit Pinellas County very, very hard. And you can even see where some areas were just under severe thunderstorm warnings. That wind was intense and just caused a lot of damage. Here's some photos that were sent in via viewer, and you can just see a lot of destruction. You can even just see the entire carports just completely wrecked. And here's another video of what we can see again from that tornado, or the possible storm and the possibility of that tornado last night. Here's that video from that, and you can just see that destruction all over the road of where this storm was most likely rotating. Again, you can see carports completely wrecked, and you can also see roofs just totally ripped off of homes. Again, this is very normal of what we see, especially with tornado damage. However, it's not confirmed quite yet of if there was actually a tornado on the ground. And at last check, as I'm looking right here at our National Weather Service chat, apparently the National Weather Service of Tampa is conducting a review of the last of the remaining data before finalizing their report. So fingers crossed, by the end of the day today, we should be able to find out if there was indeed a tornado in Pinellas County last night.
Yeah, absolutely bizarre, you know, to see that video and happen like that. But that damage is hard to see in parts of those, you know, throughout quite a bit of some of those neighborhoods.
Yeah, for sure. And even if just with any storm, with any amount of damage, yeah, it's really disheartening, especially when we see those storms pick up as quickly and got as intense as they did, of how quick they actually did as they were making their way over the Tampa Bay area.
But here in our area, we are seeing some storms move through right now.
Yeah, some storms we are. Very typical of what we see every single day in the summertime. Lots of that widespread rain, but heads up, more storms on the way tomorrow. But taking a look outside right now, this is our Lake Mary Tower camera. You can see that rain making its way over I-4 as it continues to make its way up into Volusia County. And what we can see right here over Daytona, blue skies, not a drop. Areas that today across the Space Coast were pretty much dry. Southern Brevard County got a couple of showers, but overall, Volusia County shores stayed dry. That is not going to be the case tomorrow. And as we do take a look at that radar at the moment, things are going to continue to really spark up as we head through the rest of the day today. So here's a look at the radar. We can see some severe storms just on the border of Georgia and Florida. But as we do take a little bit of a closer look, lots of just very scattered little pockets of those showers. We can see some of those showers continuing to make their way out of Alachua and Marion County, but still seeing some rain over the I-75 corridor. Checking out more of Seminole County, Volusia County, moving into Lake County, seeing some more of those clusters of thunderstorms. Good little cluster making its way out of Daytona as well as Sanford. But also if you're in the Claremont and Ocoee area, you're going to get hit very soon with that thunderstorm that's just to the north of Orlando. Continuing to see more of those storms as we make our way down across Orange County, as well as parts of areas of Osceola and Brevard County. Just very scattered showers, but we're going to continue to see these storms intensify as they interact with the western sea breeze once again over areas of Tampa Bay. So we're going to be watching these storms very carefully, especially as they make their way over towards that region that got hit pretty hard as we saw with those storms yesterday.
Yeah, and Fox 35 Weather Impact Day, and that's also going to continue into tomorrow.
Yeah, Garrett, that's right. So we're seeing those storms out there right now, definitely putting a little bit of a slick note on that evening commute. And we're going to be seeing more of those storms tomorrow. However, things are going to really flip. We're going to be seeing those storms making their way off the west coast today. And then we're going to see a little bit of a pattern change. Those storms actually going to fire up across the central part of the peninsula tomorrow and then make their way eastward, which is why we were really stressing the fact that especially if you're on the beaches tomorrow, keep your eyes to the sky and definitely be aware of the forecast and when we could see that timing tomorrow. But as for threats, really wind and that vivid lightning are going to be the main threats as we head through the rest of the afternoon and evening and through the day tomorrow. Seeing the possibility of some small hail if we see those clusters of storms become very strong. We could see some hail pockets in there, as well as, of course, those heavy torrential Florida downpours as we head through the next couple of hours. But as we take a look at that storm threat, mainly across the I-75 corridor and northern Florida Turnpike is where we're seeing that severe risk today, as well as along the west coast. But again, that flips tomorrow. We're going to see that severe risk on the east coast as we head through tomorrow. So areas especially across Daytona, New Smyrna, Titusville, even down to Cocoa Beach and Melbourne, you're going to be in that and going to be seeing much more showers as we head through tomorrow afternoon. And here's that timing on that. We can see things calming down through the overnight, quickly picking up tomorrow afternoon, and those storms making their way off the east coast as we head through tomorrow. We're going to keep those rain chances fairly high as we even head through the weekend. So Garrett, I hope you have that rain jacket ready because it's going to be pretty soggy over the next couple of days.
Yeah, certainly going to put that thing to use. But let's talk a little tropics because I see it says no activity expected, and there's a reason for that.
Yeah, there is a reason for that. So we are going to be seeing no tropical activity for the next 7 days, according to the National Hurricane Center. We're really seeing things fairly quiet, no even real areas of interest of what we're keeping an eye on at the moment. Of course, things can change like we did see with Andrea, but really on Tuesday, we saw our first named storm, and then we also saw that first named storm end. So this was a very weak, short-lived tropical system, and now we are back quiet. As we do also take a look, although we're not seeing anything in the Atlantic, you can see that little red dot just off the coast of Mexico. And as we slowly turn the globe, we can see the areas across the eastern Pacific are once again keeping an eye on the possibility of another tropical storm. And that next name is going to be Flossie on the eastern Pacific side. So overall, for storm names on our end, the Atlantic Basin, we have Andrea down. So we're keeping an eye on Barry, Chantal, as well as Dexter for our next couple of names coming up on the list. But we already mentioned it's quiet, it's going to stay quiet, and that's because of the Saharan dust. And this is going to kind of help us, but also kind of work against us as well. Another plume of that Saharan dust making its way into the Gulf, and you will really be able to see that as we head through tomorrow and in the weekend. That sky, when it's not filled with storms, you'll notice it's going to look a little hazy and a little milky. Yes, that's okay. That's going to be the Saharan dust. But if you suffer with allergies just like I do, you may be feeling it a little bit tomorrow. So heads up, make sure you take those allergy medications ahead of time and just be careful a little bit if you are planning on spending a lot of time outside this weekend. That dust really going to be lingering over the Gulf as we take a look even ahead into next week. And then we see a couple more waves. We see a wave moving in as we take a look later on next week. And then possibly looking ahead even into next weekend, we could be seeing two other waves of that Saharan dust make its way into the Gulf. Good news is that this is going to keep a buffer and a lid on that tropical activity. Tropical activity does not like dust and it does not like dry air, and we have that in the atmosphere. So it should be keeping the tropics at bay. However, on the flip side, we already talked about the allergies, but we are going to be seeing some gorgeous sunsets. However, just like today when we did see those thunderstorms continuing to pick up, with that little bit of dry air, that could possibly lead to a lot more lightning in the atmosphere as we take a look at the next couple of days. But overall, we're wrapping up June. Let's take a look into July as we see that warmer water starting to really pick up, especially in the Gulf. We're also going to start to see that warmer water in the Caribbean as well as the Central Atlantic. So a couple more zones that we're going to need to keep an eye on as we take a look ahead for tropical activity headed into July.
Hard to believe we're already heading into July. That first month of hurricane season has gone by pretty fast.
It's gone by pretty fast and it's been quiet for the most part. So fingers crossed we still keep that trend, but ultimately that really doesn't say anything to what we could be expecting later on. It's not like we're almost going to be activity heavy right when we hit the center of tropic season. That doesn't really give any indicator of how busy or not busy our season is going to be. But for now, enjoy it. Make sure you're really building up your preparation kit so you're ready for when a storm does impact Central Florida.
All right, Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Laurel Blanchard, we appreciate you joining us.
Thanks, Garrett.
We're going to take a break and we'll be right back.
watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us. We are following up on this Ocala baseball coach and church volunteer who was arrested, facing charges now. The investigation began when a child reported John Sayles back in March, and investigators say this may have gone back 10 years, and there could be more victims. We heard from Captain Michael Summer with the Ocala Police Department just a little bit ago.
Basically, our investigation started in late March when a child courageously told a parent, and the parent came forward giving us information, which led to, as you can tell, since we're almost to July, a rather lengthy investigation that ended up with us discovering multiple victims in multiple jurisdictions. Detective Drake did a fantastic job piecing a story together that was one of those, well, I heard this, well, I heard that, and was able to piece it together to where we finally have two solid victims that had unfortunate circumstances with this gentleman.
That was one of the things that stood out to me was reading that affidavit. It just seemed like over and over and over again you guys talk to people and they say, well, we heard of this person and we heard of this person, and it just keeps expanding. You guys think there could be more people out there?
The reason we believe that is because this story goes back almost 10 years to what we pieced together to be the beginning. You know, some things were weird but relatively innocent, so to speak, just odd comments and all. And, you know, it was getting to those victims that actually had something happen to them and finding them. Our concern is that we may not have found them all.
That being said, I'm sure you still want people to come forward, even if they didn't have anything that would be considered nuisance, if they had an odd interaction.
Any information that anybody has, we will certainly welcome and take a look at to see if there is anything there.
I also had a question about the case that started in Lake County, got forwarded over to Marion County. I understand that's not your jurisdiction. But there was a case that got moved over, and then just nothing ever came of it. So DCF investigated, they found something had happened, and this guy was never charged.
I'm not familiar with all the details of that. A lot of times things get reported in one jurisdiction, and when they make it to the ultimate jurisdiction, it can't be proven. You can't find the people. I don't know exactly what took place in that particular instance, but I've seen it time and time again. You get something that was reported that happened years ago. It gets to here now. You can't find the principals involved, and unfortunately, without those disclosures, you can't make a case.
No, I know there were like 3 named locations. Can you describe the nature of his work? Was he volunteering as a baseball coach at all 3 of those places?
He was a baseball coach for 2 leagues that I know of, and involved with youth groups at a couple of area churches.
And how long has he been working with them? Since 2016?
That's to the best that we can figure out, yes, because everybody's saying it was either baseball interaction or through a church interaction that he met these young men.
You mentioned multiple victims. Is there anything that you can share about those victims' ages and numbers? What number of victims that is?
Right now, we know of 3 victims, 2 that we charged here in this case. There's 1 that's pending in another jurisdiction. And then Detective Drake is still working through a whole bunch of the tendrils of this thing that have spread out. That's what we know right now.
One of the things that was in the press release that was sent out earlier today is that this whole thing started after a parent of one of the teens actually reported that to police. What would be your message to parents out there who, hear something from their son or daughter?
Be involved in your kids' lives. Know what's going on. Know those signs when a child shows changes or shows apprehensions around somebody that maybe they used to trust, or in the case of, and I'll just use baseball as the example, the child all of a sudden that's been playing Little League for 6 years doesn't want to play Little League anymore. and can't really give you a reason. You know, just look for those signs. And parents need to trust their instincts by being involved in the things that, you know, generally when something makes you take pause and think about something, there might be something there. That's when it's time to talk to your children and ask those questions.
You brought up how you have to have enough evidence to bring charges forward. A lot of these things happened quite a while back. That's from 2020. You brought up some of this happened in 2015, 2016. How do you guys gather evidence that you can bring to the state attorney so they can actually land a conviction for something that happened so long ago?
You gather as much as you can. You double check as much as you can. In the case of the current juvenile, we used our local CPT group at Kimberly's, and there was forensic interviews done where they use their specialized techniques that kind of bolster the things that the child is telling us, you know, and then you put that all together with any data you can find, there's just, in this case, there's just so much. You build it and paint that picture the best you can, and then ultimately we'll see what happens from there. There's enough to arrest, and we'll see what happens as the judicial process plays out.
Can you elaborate on the concern for parents when it comes to that? Because we were talking about someone who was involved with the church, someone who had there's a trust that goes into that person to be involved with the children's lives, right? Can you just elaborate a little bit on that concern for parents now who might be watching this?
Like I said, parents need to be involved and they know their children better than anybody else. They know the changes that they see in their children when something's wrong. Trust those instincts and talk to that child. Be involved. You know, for me, like when my kids were young and played sports and things like that, I was always there. I was always involved. I was always watching. You know, I saw when there were changes towards things, whether it was their struggles with a particular sport because it wasn't their best, or mental, but I was there. I was involved in it. I was around it. I saw those people, and I kept my eyes open.
Going back to the churches and the sportsplex, were they ever made aware of any concerns that parents possibly brought up to them or any reports?
Not to my knowledge.
Are they working with you all right now to kind of like spread the message to encourage victims if there are more?
Well, and to be perfectly honest, we put this out pretty quick when it happened because of our fear that there may be more because of the time frame and the different organizations. So I don't know exactly where Detective Drake is with talking to those principals in the case to figure out what's going on exactly.
We'll be right back with more Fox 35 News Plus after this.
Congratulations.
watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. Give you a live look at Daytona Beach from our Hard Rock hotel camera there, where we know that construction resuming on a Daytona condo, but going to look a little bit different than the original plans. Fox 35's Chris Lindsay following this story, joins us live now via Zoom with an update. And Chris, construction has kind of shifted to a building that's slightly smaller here.
Yes, originally there was supposed to be a 31-story condo building. This is a project that was put into the works about a decade ago, but things have since changed. They ran into economic issues during the pandemic and whatnot. So a few years ago, things were supposed to be done. That isn't the case. So commissioners came together and they say, hey, something has to be done now. So they met in the middle, did a sort of compromise, and have come up with this idea to do a one-story venue that will have special events such as weddings up on the deck, and then there will be retail shops and things along those lines. But it will be built in a way that they're able to build on top of it. So if the money comes available eventually, then they can kind of shift their plans.
So kind of taking it in phases at this point. For folks who don't know, where exactly is this?
So this is on 500 North Atlantic. It is right next to A1A. So this is a project, as I mentioned, has been in the works for several years now.
What are folks in the area saying?
Well, I've been speaking with people about this year after year. So there is rebar and concrete pillars and whatnot that have been sitting there for several years now. They're upset about how it kind of looks, and even Commissioner Ken Strickland described it as an eyesore today. So they're excited that things are finally moving in the right direction. Commissioners are excited about finally getting something done on the front, even though it may not be or end up as that 31-story project, that they're at least moving in the right direction, and that they'll have a complete building, something that can draw visitors and draw people to the area.
What's the timeline for this now?
Well, they're supposed to break ground. Well, technically they've already broken ground, but they're supposed to start the first phase of this project on July 7th. So this is something that is right around the corner. As far as the completion timeline, I'm told they're looking some point in 2026 to be up and running, but there's no hard timeline that's been set up to this point.
All right, going to be interesting to watch that develop. And also a little bit of a unique situation. It's not often that you always see kind of them build kind of in a phase like that with plans to potentially build up in the future. So going to be interesting to watch.
Certainly, yes. It's sometimes you see projects downsize, but it's not often that you hear a project go from 31 stories, 162 rooms to no rooms at all in one story. So certainly something to keep an eye out for.
All right, Fox 35's Chris Lindsay, we appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break and we'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Thursday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. Tracking a couple of different animal stories along Florida's Space Coast. I want to bring in Fox 35's Esther Bauer, who joins us live now via Zoom. And Esther, good to see you. Let's start with sea turtles, because it sounds like there are some sea turtles there in Brevard County who are struggling.
Yes, Garrett, great to see you. And we love our sea turtles. Space Coast, everyone wants to see the species do well. They are severely threatened, and they love to lay their eggs and nest on Brevard's beaches. Unfortunately, Preservation Society recently put out a warning on their social media of people leaving their beach items overnight. We're talking about chairs, we're talking about beach, we're talking about toys, all of the stuff that you bring to the beach, which you need to take with you when you leave the beach. Unfortunately, that isn't happening, and it poses a major threat to not only the mama turtles trying to lay their eggs, but then the baby sea turtles, anything that gets in their way. This was very sad to hear, but the moms can actually get caught up in a chair as they're trying to nest. They can become trapped in, they still lay their eggs, and then they take that chair back out to sea with them, and they can drown because it pulls them to the bottom. So that's a major hazard we're seeing on our beaches right now, really hindering turtles, as well as deep holes. We've talked about holes before because they can pose significant threats to humans. But when you go to the beach and you dig your hole, that's fine. But we're seeing deep holes being left behind 2 to 3 feet down. This obviously, mama turtles can fall in there, or baby turtles can absolutely fall in and they will not get out. We were sent some pictures of baby hatchlings. They, try their hardest and use all their strength, but they will ultimately die ever before making it to the water if someone leaves behind a deep hole that unfortunately a turtle gets trapped in. So we're seeing these spike right now. We're at a unique part of the nesting season where moms are still coming ashore to put eggs on the beach, but babies are starting to hatch. So we're seeing that happen. So all of these hazards are affecting adults and juveniles. And they're just trying to get the word out. We want to see sea turtles thrive. They need all the help they can get. And right now, our bad beach behavior is not helping.
Yeah, and they're so cute, Esther. The last thing you want to do is hinder them. They're adorable little creatures. Showing some of that video right now. What's the ripple effect of this?
Yeah, well, the ripple effect is, if moms go up to lay their nests, and if the nests don't make it back, it just hurts the overall survivability of this species. Their numbers have been dwindling. It's been something that researchers and the Sea Turtle Preservation Society has been wanting to see spike. We're wanting to see turtles make a thriving comeback. And so they really need to be supported. They need to have clear, natural, free, flat beaches to be able to come up, nest safely, securely, and then just have the best odds for all of these babes to make it back.
Now let's talk about another story that you're doing today, and I know that's about a dolphin in distress. Where is this, and what's the situation?
So this is South Patrick Shores, right near Satellite Beach, and this is such a sad situation because I've been talking about distressed dolphins since the beginning of this year. We had one in March that was reported fishing line tightly wrapped around its tail. There was an all-hands-on-deck rescue mission for several months trying to find this dolphin, which is very hard because these animals move quite a bit faster than we do and they're in the water. But then miraculously, that dolphin freed itself in May. And now we're here at the end of June, and this is a sweet baby dolphin with its mom in this South Patrick Shores neighborhood, and there is a rope also trailing on its tail. So right now, mom and baby seem to be doing fine, but the big threat out there is if this were to get, tangled up on some dock or some rock in the water, if the baby, thrashes and really does their best to get out, but is unable to, then it can ultimately kill the baby dolphin. Its tail can be snapped off. So just a lot of bad things can come from this rope or fishing line or whatever it is that could be trailing on its tail. We now again have several rescue groups, specifically Hub SeaWorld Research, really taking the lead, but needing to rely on homeowners. If you live waterfront, if you happen to be near a back dock and you see mom and baby with something trailing behind, you need to call Hubs as fast as you can, take note of time, date, where you are, get that information out. And the goal is going to be to try to help this young one survive. There is a possibility it could get free on its own. That's what happened with this other dolphin. They're very strong. They're pretty smart. But we just don't like seeing wildlife hurting because of something that we humans probably have done.
And you mentioned the groups that are out there trying to help with this, but it's easier said than done, like you said, because like finding a needle in a haystack in some ways.
I know it's so hard because like you see them and that immediately gets reported, but then that team has to get out and these things are lightning fast. Dolphins are under the water and they're just gone. Usually when Hubs is searching for a dolphin, they told me in our last report, they search about a 40-mile radius, which is still a lot of water, a lot of seawalls, a lot of different channels that these animals can go in. So it's very hard and they really are relying on like the homeowners, the beachgoers, the lagoon lovers to be there, eyes and ears, just keeping very close watch to see where this dolphin is. And it was amazing because with the last one that they saved, like we said, researchers did not go in the water and actually cut that fishing line off, but they were able to get video to prove it was the same one. You could see where its tail had been scratched up and there was wire around it. So timing can work out where you're able to get that team out there fast enough. If this dolphin were to become trapped and someone saw that fast enough, then absolutely crews would try to be out there. But just a sad situation. It's been a tough year. And we just need to be careful about ropes and fishing line and what we happen to leave behind.
Yeah, really good point there, because we have to be cognizant because it is their world too, and the things we do certainly have impacts on them. So Fox 35's Esther Bauer, we appreciate you joining us this afternoon here on Fox 35 News Plus.
Yes, and we'll talk with you soon.
All right, we're going to take a break and we'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Thursday afternoon. live on Fox Local and on YouTube. I'm giving you a live look right now outside the Lake County Jail, where suspended Osceola County Sheriff Marcos Lopez has been held for 3 weeks now since he was arrested on racketeering charges in connection with an alleged illegal gambling ring that was run out of Kissimmee. Since then, we've seen the arrests of multiple other people, including his wife, who is also facing charges in connection with this whole thing. So the suspended sheriff, had been in jail for this entire time, even as some of the other co-defendants in this case were able to post bond. That's because there was a requirement imposed by a judge that he essentially had to prove that he would be posting this bond with money that was clean, in essence, not from the proceeds of the profits from this illegal gambling ring that he is accused of being part of and operating. And so we learned from court documents just in the last little bit that requirement had been satisfied. I haven't gone through all of them to see kind of all the details of that, but we do know that requirement had been satisfied, and then further court documents showing that he has now posted bond. So we have been on a watch outside the jail for for 3 weeks since he was arrested, waiting to see when he walks out of this jail and what he might have to say about what happened. And it appears that this could be happening sometime soon. So wanted to let you know about that. We are keeping a close eye on that this evening, and we'll let you know if that happens here. In fact, we'll leave these shots up even as a transition to another story here. So give me 1 second so that I can do that as I get ready to toss to a different story, because we want to keep you up to date on what's happening with that. Again, this is a big update. Hoping to hear from the sheriff. This is the door where we have seen the other co-defendants in this case walk out when they bonded out. And so we, in theory, would have a chance to ask him some questions and see if he might answer anything or might have anything to say after being behind bars for 3 weeks in connection with this case. So we will keep you up to date and make sure that we have eyes on that throughout the rest of our show here on Fox 35 News Plus. Well, this afternoon, Congressman Maxwell Frost was on Capitol Hill introducing the Housing Not Handcuffs Act. It's an act that prohibits federal agencies from treating homelessness as a crime. That means you wouldn't be able to arrest, wouldn't be able to ticket, things like that when it comes to these federal agencies. It actually coincides with the first anniversary of a Supreme Court decision, Johnson versus Grants Pass, that ruled local regulations banning camping in public spaces did not violate the Eighth Amendment's violation of cruel and unusual punishment. Here's what Congressman Frost had to say at a news conference just a little bit ago.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you to the partners and the Housing Not Handcuffs Coalition. It's an honor to stand alongside my colleague and a champion in this fight for affordable housing and ending homelessness, Congresswoman Jayapal, and as we introduce the Housing Not Handcuffs Act. This month marks 1 year since the disastrous Grants Pass decision was made by the Supreme Court, allowing cities and towns across the country to criminalize homelessness and completely wipe their hands clean of making sure that every one of their citizens, every one of the people who live in your cities and towns, at a minimum, have a bed to sleep at night. Since then, in nearly 40 states, cities across this country have introduced over 320 bills criminalizing unhoused people, with close to 220 of those bills passing, including in my own district in Orlando, Florida. These laws don't solve homelessness. They dehumanize people who are unhoused. It tries to hide the problem of homelessness instead of providing an alternative to it, which is fixing it. It gives people criminal records, fines, and fees. It makes it even harder for people to secure stable housing, and it's a vicious cycle of cruelty. How can cities across this country believe that the solution to homelessness or the housing crisis is to ticket and arrest people who don't have enough money to afford a roof over their heads? In the richest country on the face of the earth, this is a moral failure and a failure of the people in this building. And it reflects the failure of leaders, of course, in our federal government, but also in our state, our local governments, who have refused to act in support of housing affordability and have instead pushed forward policies that widen the gap between the ultra-wealthy and the fastest growing group of Americans in this country, the working poor. Because the reality that we live in right now is that millions of Americans are just one missed paycheck away, one rent hike away, one surprise medical bill away from being homeless and from being unsheltered, from being on the streets. And no matter what people like Elon Musk or Donald Trump tell you, everybody watching this right now, you are closer to being on the streets than being like them. Every day, the burden of excessive rent and housing costs robs working people of financial stability, and this financial stability that they need to pay down debt, start businesses, form families, plan for the future, and live comfortable lives. And when working families fall behind, it's not because they've lived beyond their means, it's because this country's denied them the means to live. Which is why we're here to take cruelty out of this housing crisis that is impacting so many people, and working at building a system that is rooted in care and in dignity and in a deep love for our communities and everybody who lives in them. The Housing Not Handcuffs Act restores many protections that the Supreme Court gutted by prohibiting federal law enforcement from enforcing laws and taking action to arrest, ticket, and otherwise criminalize homelessness. Because we know that the solution to our housing crisis is not fines, it's not handcuffs. We know that homelessness is a housing issue. We know that every time the rent goes up $100, homelessness goes up 9%. These aren't two different issues. It's the same issue. 60% of Americans cannot afford basic costs of living. And Donald Trump and House Republicans are now wanting to pass this horrible, evil budget that will cut 16 million people off of their health care, take away food assistance from millions, and put families at risk of being homeless, all while they're giving tax breaks to billionaires and mega corporations. So for many folks, these federal programs are the difference between making rent and sleeping on the street. And for people who only care about the money, we have to realize that it is cheaper. It is more expensive and more challenging for our country to help people once they've slipped through the cracks and become evicted and end up on the streets. We're going to do it because it's the right thing to do, and we believe that everyone deserves a roof over their head. But when you deny us of having robust rental assistance, when you deny us of fully funding HUD and ensuring that we have housing vouchers, transitional assistance, transitional housing, permanent supporter housing, all these different things that build up what keeps people to have a roof over their head, when they slip through, it becomes harder. It becomes more expensive. We're going to deal with it. I know we're going to deal with this and solve this housing crisis. But we need the political will to do so. And unfortunately, more and more people are falling into homelessness in this country. Earlier this year, I took part in my local PIT count, point in time count. And as we walked around, I can't tell y'all how many people I met who just found themselves on the street literally days prior, weeks prior, months prior. No, it wasn't because of a personal decision they made. It's because the wages haven't gone up in this damn country. Costs have gone up. The wealth is being concentrated by the top earners in this country, billionaires and mega corporations. And so many of them were literally just hundreds of dollars away from being able to keep that roof over their head. So we have a lot of work to do, and the federal government cannot wring and clean its hands of this housing crisis. We can incentivize good behavior. We can punish bad behavior. We can ensure that cities and towns know that you cannot criminalize homelessness and you have to deal with the problem. And so I'm honored to be here with the people leading this charge here in Washington, D.C., and let's fight to ensure that we have housing, not handcuffs.
That was Congressman Frost earlier today. Give you another live look outside the Lake County Jail. We have crews on the scene there standing by in case Lopez does end up bonding out here in the next little bit. We've had crews out there around the clock for the past 3 weeks since he was arrested, and it could happen.
Fox 35 News starts now with a weather alert.
Strong storms bringing downpours, dangerous